This is an unprecedented symptom. The main doctor is not present. Who's going to make the announcement? I can't do it.
Doctors stood in front of the stretcher heading to the operating room, scratching their heads in confusion. The one who collapsed is my benefactor. Somehow, I got him to the hospital, but his condition seemed severe and nobody wanted to perform the surgery that I in this situation. I'll do it. With resolve, I took a step forward.
What are you saying? You're not a doctor. There's no way you can save my father.
The patient's daughter looked at me with disbelief. That's reasonable. After all, I am a part-timer at a diner. Don't worry. The boss will definitely pull through. I showed her a reassuring smile and rushed to the operating room. Because my name is Liam, 29 years old, that I work part-time at a cafe. The cafe owner, a regular customer, hadn't been feeling well recently and I have been employed as a temporary part-timer since about a year ago.
We somehow got through today's lunchtime rush.
This shop, located between a residential area and an office district, was always busy at lunchtime due to the nearby university hospital. The cafe owner, his wife, their daughter, and I managed to keep the place running. I handed the cafe owner a towel to wipe his sweaty forehead and told him to take a break. Recently, the owner hadn't been able to come out front and has been doing all the kitchen work. He got winded as soon as he stood for a long time.
Thank you for today. Liam, you're really a big help.
No. I should be thanking you for hiring me.
My dad is really too soft on you, Liam.
The woman looking at me grumpily while handing the owner a cup of water was Olivia. She was the owner's only daughter. Anticipating to taking over the shop someday, she was studying business management at college, helping out at the shop while also studying for her cook's license. Anyone could see she's a dutiful daughter and friendly to customers. She's the face of the shop, so to speak. However, for some reason, she was often cold to me.
Just because you're a part-timer, don't think you can slack off. I'll kick you out right away if you do.
While saying this, she quickly wiped the dishes I've washed and put them back in the cabinet. Her efficiency is truly impressive. I don't mean to.
Olivia wants you to become a full-time employee, Liam. She's worried that as a part-timer, you could quit at any time. She'll be lonely if you're gone. Dad! What are you saying? That's not it.
The plate slipped from Olivia's hand. I reached out and caught it just in time. Here.
Thank you.
She thanked me properly as I handed back the plate. She's not a bad kid.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that you can't trust someone so easily who might quit at any time. It's just the four of us running the shop. We can't afford anyone suddenly quitting.
That's true. I get it. It's an important shop.
As long as you understand.
The cafe owner, who had been watching our exchange, drank his water with a smile. Then, he coughed heavily. Olivia and I rushed over to him and patted his back.
Dad! Are you okay? Did you choke? I'm just getting old. What are you talking about?
Listening to the father-daughter conversation, I touched the owner's throat.
What's wrong, Liam?
Boss, could you open your mouth a little?
Sure.
Excuse me. I shined the light from my smartphone into his mouth. I couldn't get a detailed look, but I had a bad feeling, so I put my ear to his chest and listened to his breathing. Sir, which hospital are you currently going to?
The one near the station.
I see. How about getting examined at a bigger hospital? If you ask your current doctor, I think they would write a referral. Preferably to a surgeon named Dr. Benjamin. He's a really skilled doctor.
I understand.
The cafe owner took my advice to heart. Olivia watched this with a puzzled look.
What are you, Liam? You never told me about your previous job, did you?
Well, I just know a few people in that field, that's all. More importantly, please accompany the boss to the hospital.
Of course.
A few days later, the owner was back in the kitchen for the first time in a while. It seemed that the treatment he received at the university hospital, where he was referred to Dr. Benjamin, whom I had recommended, had made him feel much better. The customers were happily chatting with the boss they hadn't seen in a while. "Boss, you seem to be doing well today."
It's all thanks to your advice, Liam.
I should have said something sooner.
Not at all. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here today, able to meet with customers.
It's all thanks to Dr. Benjamin, isn't it? Dad, you're giving Liam too much credit.
With a composed look on her face, Olivia continued to dish out the food.
Of course, I'm grateful to Dr. Benjamin. But without Liam's advice, I wouldn't have been able to get his examination.
Olivia, if you prepare the food with that look on your face, it will taste bad. With a surprised look on her face, Olivia looked at her hands. I'm not a cook, but I've heard that there's a difference in taste between food prepared with love and food that's not. Whether it's a superstition or a jinx, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is the feelings towards the customers and the food.
I'm sorry.
Olivia, who sincerely apologized, looked depressed as she took the finished dish to the customer. The regulars seemed to be concerned about her.
I'm sorry, Liam. Olivia is actually a good kid.
Of course, I understand. She's a bit tricky to figure out whether she's straightforward or not.
Exactly. Even when she said she wanted to take over the shop, she told us that she couldn't rely on just her mom and me, but secretly told her friends that she wanted us to care more about ourselves than the shop. I learned this from one of her friends.
That's a really wonderful daughter you have.
Right?
In this way, we managed to get through that day's lunchtime while having a conversation. Even though the boss was doing well, it's not good to overdo it. When all the customers were gone, I prepared a chair for the owner to take a break, but the door opened again, and two men entered the shop.
Welcome.
The owner stood up. Having customers come is a good thing, but I wanted him to rest as much as possible. I stepped forward to guide them to their seats. Welcome. Are you two?
Yes, two of us.
Behind the young man showing the number 2 with his fingers, there was a familiar face.
Oh, if it isn't Liam. I didn't expect to run into you in a place like this, having fallen from grace.
Long time no see. The man recognized me, looked a little surprised, and then put on an unpleasant grin.
So, you decided to work in this rundown shop because you haven't been seen recently. It must be because you didn't fit in with our common sense management style. I think people who can't adapt to the organization are useless no matter where they go.
I think your way is wrong.
Are you still saying that? Don't you know the saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do? If you had done as I said, you would have succeeded. Perhaps it was too difficult for a young man like you to understand. Or,
He looked around the shop and laughs.
You're such a fool for choosing this dilapidated place to work. Maybe you just can't make sound judgments.
Huh?
From the back of the shop, Olivia clearly showed her anger. When they heard her voice, the man's companion stepped in to mediate.
Dr. Aiden, that's rude. Please sit here.
I don't think it's worth expecting anything, but okay.
The man called Aiden reluctantly sat down at the table.
I'll leave the ordering to you, Noah. I followed you to this place because you insisted. Who would come to such a musty shop?
The young man seems to be called Noah. As he opened the menu, he glanced at the kitchen with a flustered look.
I get it, but the shop staff can hear you.
I'm saying it so they can hear me.
Then. I'll have the daily special set, and a baguette set for him, please.
Certainly. When I returned to the kitchen, the manager was preparing to cook with a wry smile, and Olivia was glaring at the dining area.
If his friend wasn't sane, I would have kicked him out.
As we crossed paths, Olivia spat out her frustration in a low voice.
That unpleasant man, is he your acquaintance, Liam?
Well, an old one, so to speak. While evading her question, I distanced myself under the pretext of helping with the meal preparation. I then apologized to the manager in a whisper, anticipating more probing questions and feeling a sense of dread.
You're not the one at fault, Liam, so don't apologize.
I was truly humbled by the manager, who replied with a smile.
See. It's delicious, isn't it?
It's no different from eating at home.
Olivia clenched her fists. I quietly blocked the path to keep her from leaving the kitchen. About 30 minutes later, when the two men got up, the manager headed to the cash register. He gestured for me not to go, and stopped Olivia's movement as well. We don't want any trouble as they leave. Apparently hitting the mark, Olivia reluctantly backed down. I also didn't want to engage with them, so I stepped back and watched the payment process.
Well, your bill is.
At that moment, the manager clutched his chest and started coughing heavily. Although it was a momentary event, it seemed to unfold in slow motion. The manager collapsed in front of the cash register with a loud thud. We stood there, stunned.
Father.
Olivia's soulless voice brought me back to reality. Boss. I turned the manager over and checked his consciousness that he was unconscious, his face was white, and he didn't respond to my calls. His breath had stopped. A seizure maybe. Without a formal diagnosis, it was crucial not to do anything careless that I asked Olivia to call an ambulance, then secured the manager's airway and started mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Dr. Aiden. Please check his pulse. You, ensure a clear path for the ambulance. Noah followed my instruction and ran off. However, Dr. Aiden, who had been observing the manager's condition, shook his head.
There's nothing we can do in this situation.
He's an important person. Even if he wasn't, a doctor's duty is to save anyone, right? I threw those words at him and continued with the artificial respiration. Soon after, we could hear the ambulance siren from afar. Following the manager, who was carried onto the stretcher, Olivia and I boarded the ambulance as well. While the emergency team was attaching a breathing device, one of them looked at me in surprise.
Dr. Liam. What are you doing here?
Forget about that. Focus on him now. Olivia, please explain the manager's condition. Olivia showed the notes she had from previous medical consultations and informed them about the medication he had been taking. It was impressive that she had managed to gather everything in such a limited time.
He was feeling well today, it might be some kind of seizure.
His primary doctor is Dr. Benjamin, correct? He's not in the country this week due to a conference.
Where is the ambulance headed? When I asked, the emergency team looked at me expectantly.
T University Hospital.
That was the hospital the manager had been recently visiting, and the one I had recommended. Upon arriving at the hospital, the stretcher carrying the manager was rushed into the operating room. We, who accompanied him, were left near the operating room. But soon after, a doctor ran up to us, barely catching his breath. He reached me.
The preliminary examination is finished.
What's the condition?
It seems to be a complication from a chronic illness, quite a serious condition. He's still not breathing and his pulse is.
Who's the surgeon?
There are overlapping symptoms that we have never seen before.
So what? How many doctors do you think are here? The time we spent talking felt too precious, yet the other party was searching for words. Don't tell me, there's no doctor confident enough to handle this? Ridiculous. There's no time for this. I know that shouting doesn't help. Even so, I felt so frustrated and angry at the hospital's incompetence that I could hardly stand it that I couldn't leave the manager to them. I'll do it. I'm registered. There shouldn't be a problem.
What are you talking about?
Olivia, who had been trembling without saying a word since we arrived at the hospital, looked at me with disbelief.
Have you gone mad? You're not a doctor, you can't possibly save my father.
It's okay. I promise, I will definitely save him. I grasped Olivia's hands and looked straight into her eyes as I promised. Overwhelmed by my determination, Olivia nodded quietly. Leaving her there, I hurried to the operating room. About 2 hours later, having done everything I could, I stood over the manager, who was now asleep. Olivia lay on the bed, shedding tears next to the manager.
Darling.
Guided by a nurse, it seemed that the manager's wife, who had been away on business that day, had arrived. She held her husband's hand next to Olivia.
Dr. Liam, you saved my husband.
Well. I nodded slightly and was met with a deep bow.
Thank you very much for saving him.
No, as a doctor, it was my duty. The manager's operation was successful. The tension lifted, and I sat down in a nearby chair.
Well done, Dr. Liam.
A junior doctor from my department offered a towel in consolation. Other doctors from the same department watched us from outside the room, whispering praises like, as expected of Dr. Liam.
Everyone, you had given up.
I poked the forehead of a whispering junior. Listen, no matter how difficult the surgery, if there's even a 1% chance, you shouldn't give up. It's lucky I was here. Were you scared too?
I'm sorry.
The junior bowed his head and left the room. The other doctors, perhaps thinking they might be next to get scolded, also left from in front of the room. Sigh. That's why I didn't want to return to the hospital. As I sighed in exasperation, Olivia raised her tear-stained face.
Liam, who are you? I don't need to ask, do I? You're a doctor here, right?
Well.
Why are you working part-time at our place?
You saw it, didn't you? I couldn't stand the working conditions here. I was once a star surgeon at this hospital. Known as the Hand of God or Genius Surgeon, slightly embarrassing titles to bear, my success rate for difficult surgeries was high, and patients came from abroad just to be operated on by me. The trouble began when Dr. Aiden became a professor at our hospital a year ago. Ever since he became the top surgeon here, the doctors around me started prioritizing wealthy patients, under Aiden's leadership. It's not right to discriminate patients based on their wealth, yet blinded by money, doctors started to choose patients based on their financial status. Using his power and wealth, he started to select relatively affluent people from my patients and became their primary physician. There's no problem in leaving the patient's treatment to him if they get better. However, when it came to surgeries, he would appoint me as his assistant. He would leave all the difficult surgeries to me and then take credit for the successes. Dr. Aiden would lie to patients that he was the main surgeon, and he gained trust and gratitude from patients. I considered telling patients the truth, but the relationship between a doctor and a patient is based on trust. Even a small lie could cause cracks in that relationship, and could potentially cause unnecessary stress for the patient. I didn't want to expose my important patients to danger for the sake of my own honor. As long as the patients get better, that's fine. I kept telling myself that and endured, but when a surgery ended in failure, he would place the blame on me. No one dared to go against the professor, and everyone turned a blind eye. Medicine is a team effort, yet how could I trust colleagues who acted like this? I couldn't trust anyone, and if anything went wrong, it was all my fault. The sense of distrust and discomfort whirled around in my head, and gradually I became afraid of performing surgeries. The person who cared for me during these times was the manager. Every day during lunch break, I would visit his diner, and he seemed to notice that my face was becoming more and more worn out each day. One day, when there were no other customers, he served me a pudding I didn't order.
It's on the house since you're a regular. I'll listen to any complaints you have while you're at it.
He cared for me, who was just a customer to him. I finally spilled my thoughts to him.
I see. It must be hard to go to work.
Yes.
They say if you know the root of your stress, it's good to take a break. How about taking some time off?
But doing nothing.
In that case, would you like to help me at my place?
Your place?
Recently I've been feeling my age. My hospital visits have increased, and my daughter is going to start helping me next month, but she's not cut out for heavy work, and I was just thinking about it.
Are you sure?
That's my line.
I was swayed by the manager's kind smile, and decided to take a break from work and start a part-time job at the diner. And so, I left those gloomy days behind. And that's why I'm completely fine now. I can't thank the manager enough.
I had no idea.
Olivia listened to my story without doubt. It's a story from a month before you started helping.
I had no idea. I'm sorry for saying such harsh things. Thank you for helping my father.
Olivia deeply bowed her head. Whether it was due to fatigue or her mind not catching up, the usually energetic Olivia looked very weak. No. I asked him not to tell you. Whether I'm a doctor or not has nothing to do with working as a cafe staff. And I don't remember being told anything terrible.
You're lying. I know. I was harsh to you.
Well, I did think you were just being not so straightforward.
So, there was no point in my self-loathing later.
That happened. I was ignored with a red face. A week later, the manager was discharged from the hospital. From now on, he will have more frequent hospital visits, but he seemed relieved now that I am his primary doctor. Yes, I have returned as a surgeon at T University Hospital. With the successful operation on the manager, I regained my confidence to face my patients. It seemed the restaurant will be closed until the manager's health stabilizes. But in the meantime, I've been spending fulfilling days coming up with new menu items with Olivia. And the manager's wife. Dr. Benjamin, the original primary care doctor for the manager, was greatly surprised by the events that occurred during his absence, but he highly praised my achievements. Now, He's setting aside time for lectures disguised as study sessions to admonish the doctors who were frightened by the surgery. As one of the lecturers, I was also put on the stand. I was asked by the hospital to lend my power to the recovery of the hospital's trust by transmitting my skills and my determination as a doctor to those around me. Doctor Benjamin apologized and expressed his gratitude for being absent during the critical moment, especially during the crisis of his own patient, and I decided to take the plunge and consult him about the reason for my leave. Then, under the leadership of Dr. Benjamin, an internal investigation was conducted within the hospital. As a result, it was revealed that doctors, including Dr. Aiden, had been favoring patients based on money. Naturally, the matter couldn't be contained internally, and for several days, the hospital director and management team were kept busy explaining to the media. Along with this, it was the voices on social media that cornered Dr. Aiden. It seems that when the manager collapsed, the door to the restaurant was open and a crowd of onlookers had gathered outside. While it's not something to be praised, one of them recorded our actions and posted it on social media with the ironic caption, "Capable shopkeeper and incapable doctor." Of course, the video was quickly deleted, but its spread was fierce, and by that night, Dr. Aiden's name and the hospital where he worked were identified. That I thought to myself, as if it were someone else's problem, having my face plastered at the top of the website has come back to haunt me. In the end, he was reprimanded by the hospital director, and the timing of the hospital's loss of trust and my accusations coincided perfectly, revealing his misdeeds in the hospital. He was subsequently dismissed for violation of employment regulations and lack of ability as a doctor. Dr. Aiden is currently looking for a new job, but of course, there are no hospitals willing to accept him, whose face is known not only in the medical industry but also to the general public. Occasionally, I hear rumors from doctors at other hospitals that Dr. Aiden was turned away at the door that day, thanks to the departure of doctors who prioritized their personal interests, such as Dr. Aiden. An environment was created where patients could receive treatment equally. I was able to have fulfilling days as a doctor, focusing on the patients in front of me. After I left, the cafeteria started a sandwich selling service, considering the burden on the manager. Apparently, Olivia proposed it in order to reduce the time the manager had to stand in the kitchen. Today's sandwich is tuna. It looks delicious.
Of course. My dad made it.
At the hospital entrance, my mood improved as I looked at the contents of the lunchbox handed over by Olivia. As a thank you for saving her father, she delivers lunch to the hospital like this every day.
Is that a homemade lunch from your wife? That's nice.
Noah, who happened to find us, whistles. He was a trainee doctor who arrived during my leave, so he knew very little about me or Dr. Aiden's misdeeds and was still a fresh medical student. It seemed he also frequented the cafeteria and knew Olivia well.
That's not it. My dad made it.
Lucky you, Dr. Liam. Let's go to the restaurant together next week.
Sounds good.
Are you coming?
Is that not okay?
No one said that.
As always, her attitude towards me was strict. But this time it was different.
That's right. I understand you're a fine doctor, but if anything similar happens again, you can work at our place.
I wondered if it's okay to be proud that I have another place where I belong. Thank you. Olivia, you're really kind.
Me?
You're dutiful to your parents, you're working hard for the restaurant, and you even bring me lunch like this.
That's because you helped my dad. I'm not doing it because I like.
Really? Then you don't have to force yourself.
No one said they're forcing.
Looking at Olivia, who rebutted me, I remembered a conversation when the manager came for a checkup yesterday.
That Olivia. She seemed lonely after you left, Liam, but recently she started delivering lunch and even started humming. She must really like you.
The manager said that he was glad that Olivia had found a good person.
What?
As Olivia was about to get on her bike and head back to the restaurant, I tried giving her advice, even though it might be sticking my nose into her business. You know, if you were a bit more honest with yourself, you'd appear even more attractive.
That's none of your business. What do you mean, even more? Don't say such cheeky things.
Her voice squeaked as she started pedaling a bit unsteadily. I called out to her to be careful, but I wonder if she heard me. Rebuilding trust isn't an easy process, but I have many allies. I was once scared of surgery, but I was reminded that there are lives that I can save with my own hands. And now, I have another place where I belong. I have people I can trust. As long as they're by my side, I can keep going. That I believe that one day my limited perspective will broaden. I want to become a person who can face the hospital and the patients with honesty and the courage to believe in myself. I believe that doing so will definitely be a way to repay everyone for their kindness.